Good evening and welcome to the Social Newsroom. Why am I so dramatic? Because I'm with someone who makes me nervous. She's my first boss in the newsroom. That is Carol Radull. And ladies and gentlemen, I may bring it to your attention. It's just after 6. This is the 6th episode. On the 6th of February, Caroline feels that I've said something that is...
6 is the devil's number. Should have been the 7th.
And we're 8 days away from Valentine's. Who's keeping count today, no?
8 days to Valentine's, 9 days to my birthday, 9 days to my wedding anniversary.
Do people
Okay,
still...
so now you sound better than me now. Like, he's keeping count of the right date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish my mom pushed a bit earlier. Nasema nilikuwa kichwa ngumu sana nikataa kutoka.
So basically, February, you need money, eh?
Oh yeah. Always away February, that's a good thing. Vacation, anywhere you want to go, prices are cheap.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome, guys. Thank you for joining us this evening. I am very excited, not just saying that because that's what people say on a show, but this lady right here gave me the opportunity to be on air. She called me from when I was in uni and said, hi, Mark. Is this Mark?
You said, can I tell the story?
Okay.
He sent his
I really
voice
want to
over.
hear this.
He sent his voice. No, because when we would advertise, when I was at Kiss 100, we'd advertise for voices and we would tell people to call a line and record their voice, record something. And we would get like 2,500 voices and I would listen to every single one.
What?
And 2,399 were normally bad. So the one good voice, I'm like, this is the guy. I don't care whether he's a journalist or not, we have to hire this guy. And good enough, sure enough,
What
he
was
was
his number?
qualified. Huh?
What is his number? He said over 2,500.
No, there was like 2 good voices. By the way, it was you and I think Freddie Ndimuli.
And
We had
yeah.
Out
2
of how
people.
many?
Out of like 2,500 voices. And then we call him for an interview. Then he does well. Then he tells us, I haven't finished school. So I'm still in uni. So we actually said we will wait.
Yes.
And we
they
didn't
did.
hire anyone until he finished.
You know,
like, I don't know how many months later.
A month after I graduated, nilikuwa naishi Ongwaro ama ilikuwa wapi na best yangu. A month, I get the job. I get a call. And I'm like, do you
So wait,
still...
Mark, ulikuwa Makanga when? Before this, ama after this?
Yaliondwele sipite. We moved from Makanga days. So Makanga days were before uni, just after high school. That window where people are, you know...
Is he making fun of you or you're really a Makanga?
No, he was a Makanga.
Yeah.
Ain't no shame in the game. That's the area
Those
he
are
looks.
toes.
Beba, that's the area he looks. Yes. I know you probably don't know that route because it's not zile za manyanga. Ni unachapa hapo ukienda industrial area hadi Samia, unaingia tao hapo to see that area. So yes, it happened. It taught me some good life lessons, and I knew for sure.
Shapes you.
Yes, it shapes you. But she gave me my first job in the newsroom, and she was very,
Can
very,
we move on?
very gracious.
You know, this is so weird. This is, after 6 episodes, this is the first time conversation imeanza tu. No introduction, nothing. Like,
Yeah.
Carol, this is the first time it has happened. Like, tumeshaanza tu kuongea.
I
Like,
got
I've
carried
known
away.
you guys forever.
But you
I
don't
worked with
need-
you as well.
but you don't need any introduction.
Yeah.
Who doesn't know Carol Radull?
I mean, she is the queen of sports.
And can I tell you something? So I posted on Facebook that we are hosting her. So majority of the questions I was getting, because I asked guys, okay, so mnataka niulize swali gani? I look at the comments, and majority, you have intercessors, by the way. They're saying sports CS, tunamuombea, sports CS.
And by the way,
I'm not listening.
no, why? No.
can't hear you.
I mean, if Babu won't always be there, and you can take that
I'm
job.
not commenting on that. But,
But we're here-
nobody appoints themselves. That's
Exactly.
my response.
Exactly. But just in case there's someone listening, she is open for the job when her time comes. But they know. You worked with her as well.
Yes, I did, but so this is what nilikuwa namuogopa, by the way. Me, I used to fear you. And I'll explain why.
Really?
I think for me, it was like her work ethic, yeah? So there's no single, for the 1 year I worked at Radio Africa, Kiss TV, and sometimes do news because she was doing sports. Carol used to look tough, yeah? Like, ako kwa laptop, she's writing, she wakes up, coffee, she's back. I've never ever met her kwa corridor, like just having, you know that vibe, you're chilled out, you may relax. Like I never, for the 1 year I worked at Radio, I never saw that. So I always thought, she's always up and down moving. And then she will do articles in the newspaper. She's doing radio, she's blogging, she's doing what? She has a show. And I'm like, how does one person do all these things?
I should hire you guys to do my PR. At this rate.
So me niko na kuogopa.
Yeah,
Like,
but then you were there when I actually worked, because after that I became so laid back.
Yeah, like you
Yeah.
is that when you started?
I grew
forming,
old.
Radio, was it Radio Jambo?
Bamba Sports.
Bamba
That's
Sports.
when we started doing Bamba
Yeah,
Sports.
so I came in, she was leading the newsroom, and I was on
You're
the
doing
afternoon
Classic,
shift,
I think.
Classic
Yeah.
105 FM. I was in the afternoon shift, Ramanyang would be on the morning shift.
Ramanyang.
Yeah, Ramanyang. Shout out to Rama. Now he's now at CGTN. And I could tell that she can see that I need a lot of teaching in terms of getting the scripts right, getting into the in-house writing style. But she was very kind. There was Ilado as well.
You were smart.
Oh,
That's the
thank
thing.
you, thank
You
you,
were
thank
smart.
you, thank
man.
you.
you were. Things changed.
Well, I don't.
I got smart.
Nowadays we just watch Arsenal together.
Yes. Now we're
behave like
Arsenal
hooligans.
fans together, man. And Ilado was there, and they really did just help me. Like, whenever you see there's a struggle, they would not look down on you. But I believe that speaks a lot about who she was also groomed by. And there's a story there. Unajua ya kwanza tu Radio Africa.
No, I think there's
By
so
the way,
much.
I think I started with Reuters. I think I started with camera pics because I was first hired by Mohammed Amin, the late great. I worked with him for 1 year at Africa Journal. That's when it was taken by Reuters. So when I moved to Reuters, Africa Journal was under Reuters. That's when I first met Jeff Koinange. I was his big sister at work.
You
Well,
were
not
Jeff
in age, but
Koinange's-
because I'd been there longer than him.
So you taught Jeff Koinange what he knows.
I won't say I taught him what he knew, but I showed him where the toilet was.
Carol's been humble.
I showed him where to sit and do his work. And I used to make fun of how he walks.
Oh, and
Then I realized he actually doesn't walk like this. It's his form.
It's not his swag.
so this was way before he made it into CNN and what have you.
Yes.
What year
That
was this?
This is mid-90s.
Midnight. Okay.
Let's not be specific because I'm only 18. So it's mid-90s.
Mid-90s.
But then because Mohammed Amin at some point lost Africa Journal to Finance House, which is where Reuters is based. I don't know if it still is it? I don't know. And then when we were under Reuters, you would do both Reuters Television and Africa Journal. And then when the business reporter, I think the business reporter was posted to Dar es Salaam, the business desk was empty, and I was told, Radul, you look like you could do business. I'm like, no. They're like, okay, try, write these stories, do the stock market, do the forex market and all that stuff. And I did it, and I was told, sit. So I was told, until we find a replacement, you're going to do business news.
You're just self-taught when you're doing it.
Yes, so I did business. Well, is business really that hard to understand?
Ni pesa anyway.
So I did business news for Reuters, East Africa, for a couple of months till they found someone, but I was still doing television as well. And I love doing Reuters television because I was a producer, I was behind the scenes. You cover the whole of East Africa, so you're going to Sudan, you're going to Rwanda, you're going to Burundi, you're doing Eritrea, so you're doing the whole region, covering news and social affairs. And then I was poached by the BBC. So I went to BBC for 2 years, World Service, doing radio and television. And the good thing at the BBC is they were trying to get Kenyans to break through and do stories. So every now and again I'd get a story to do, even though I was a producer.
So have
I would
Kenyans
be like
tell
a
their
correspondent.
story.
Yeah.
He was also at the BBC, but let's just tell
No,
you.
I resigned.
Oh, you
You
resigned.
resigned, I was fired.
The thing for me, BBC was really, really good in terms of grounding. And I remember the argument when I was signing up my contract was what we don't make for remuneration, we do it for training. And so when I went to the UK, the training is really good. BBC is really good with training.
Yeah, I went on some of their programs.
Yeah, and allowing Africans to tell the African story. But the idea of going to Somalia back then, I felt I was too young. I didn't want to die. My producer was coming from Canada. I had somebody else coming from the UK, and I'm like, we can't be seen in Mogadishu, a Kenyan, a Mzungu. I'm too young for this stuff.
You're a target.
We're already target. So
Yeah.
I was like, I can't handle this stuff anymore. So the next question was, can you go to Sudan? I was like, I will have to think about it. And at that point, I was like,
I
no.
did Southern Sudan. I did some stints in Southern, well, based out of Lokichogio. So you'd be in Lokichogio and then fly 3 hours in, cover that. This is the famine of the late 90s. Cover the famine, come back the same day, do the same the next day for like 3 weeks.
You know, this is
And
amazing.
then file with those big satellite phones like this. I don't know if you remember those big satellite phones.
No, I don't.
There were no
I may be
smartphones. No, you can't. You're a toy. But by the way, my firing had nothing to do with my performance. I had a side hustle doing business with the company, so it was unethical. So yeah, they had a reason to fire
Conflict
me.
of your
Conflict
contract.
of interest.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the challenge those days with the BBC, you know, nowadays at least they have African programming.
Yeah.
Then, because I was working for World Service, so what happens with international media is they run almost the same 6, 7, or 8 stories in a day. If you see, you'll see the same 8 stories over the day, maybe changing 2 or 3 stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So of course, one story has to be local for them, which is England. The second story is Europe. Third was Middle East, was huge those days. Then the Americas, then China's, then one from Africa. And of course, the one from Africa would either be South Africa or Nigeria. So Kenya would get little attention. So we'd actually sit for like 2, 3 days doing nothing. And unfortunately, the news that then would capture the Nairobi office is
Drought.
the genocides, the drought and famine, the Kenyan elections, which are always dramatic. So it was never the good stories. The good thing now is that they have African channels. So they're telling a lot more African stories. And there's a demand for it. So things are good now.
Things are good now.
Things are good now.
Steve Njugush is happy to see Carol Radull. Much respect to her for great contribution in sports and journalism. You know, the surprising thing, and keep writing these comments. If you want to propose to her, please do, and then get to the truth about...
But I'm single, but I'm not ready to mingle.
Okay, all right. You should have let them
Disclaimer.
ask first. But the amazing thing is people know you for the ruckus you cause in the sporting world, especially the kimnido. Initangwa kimnido. Initangwa hivyo. The thing she makes people feel, because Arsenal are currently at the top of the table, and
are winning the league.
and are winning the league.
Arsenal are top of the table.
Yeah,
I stopped watching football.
You must be a Liverpool fan.
No, I'm not a Liverpool fan. So what happened after Ferguson left, then we had David Moyes, and then we started having all this drama with Man United. Like,
How can you stop watching? You can say I've stopped supporting a club, but if you're a football fan, you can't say I've stopped watching
no, if
football.
I can't watch Man United, there's no point of watching football. And for me, I was like, I used to get really depressed. Like, I used
Then
to
you're
take
a
it so
club
personal.
fan. You're not a
So,
football fan.
I mean, I've gone to Old Trafford. I actually made a
Wow.
trip to the UK, went to Old Trafford. I held the Champions League trophy.
Have you been to City Stadium?
Yes, I have. No,
Have you been to Kamtayoyo?
No, Carol, listen.
Have you been to Hope Center?
So I've been to Nyayo
I've been to
Stadium.
Hope Center to play
So I've been to
basketball,
Nyayo
yeah.
Stadium, but this is what was shocking to me.
Yeah.
So I went to Stamford Bridge. I looked at Stamford Bridge and I'm like, Nyayo Stadium, by the way.
Aye.
The place looks old, and that's back
Stamford
then.
Bridge is ugly.
Stamford is, you agree?
I've never been there, but I can tell
It's
an
ugly.
ugly stadium.
Niliangalia hivi niko na ini Nyayo Stadium. When Nyayo Stadium back then ilikuwa tu just imeachiliwa. Old Trafford and Emirates, unfortunately. Those are the best. Like Emirates, like it's really, really, really
But
cool.
it's a recent stadium. It's a recent stadium.
Yeah,
we
but
talk
I
about
like,
Kenyan sports?
I like
Can we
what
talk
you,
about
no,
Kenyan
I like what you
sports?
brought up. Yeah, I like that because you know he said, you know, very proud, and to his credit, he went there at Stamford Bridge, although on BBC's tab, because that's when you were training, right?
No, you
Yeah,
you
it's
didn't
not
say
like-
that.
No, I used my money. I used my money to go there on weekends. That's what I'll do. Because I'm not working Saturday, Sunday.
you're already
make
there.
trips.
Yeah,
you're
but
just
you're already
using a
there. You
train-
didn't leave
a
Kenya
train.
just to go to
Old
Stamford
Trafford
Bridge.
ni mbali, Carol.
Oh, yeah, it's in Manchester.
Uko ni mbali. Umenyeshewa, kuna
Gotcha.
baridi.
No, but there's a point there she's brought up because we're proud to, you know, speak about Arsenal, the EPL and what have you, but locally supporting our own sports, we don't do that as much as we should. And I'm guilty. Let me be honest. I'm guilty of that. And I think that's where she is, in the cusp of really challenging people to support the local sports and our local legends. We don't just only have the
It's actually a catch-22, Mark, because people who really love sport, and it's not just football, it's rugby, it's hockey, all the sports in Kenya are suffering from a lack of investment, a lack of attention, a lack of media coverage, and a lack of fans as a result. But on their side as well, they're not doing enough to attract us. You see, we've been talking about stadiums. Stadiums itself are not very comfortable places to go to in Kenya. I remember when we were starting Just a Study, which is on pause, but a couple of years ago when we were starting Just a Study, we actually did a research on Facebook and asked fans, why don't you go and watch your own teams? And they said the stadiums are dirty, there are no toilets for women, and that time Nyayo was under construction, under renovation for 4 years.
Yes, I remember
wow,
that.
the big reveal, yeah. And I think Kasarani, I don't know, was being held for I don't know what. So most of the time the league was using Kamtoyoyo. And they're telling us, you people tell us to go to Kamtoyoyo. By the way, there are no toilets at Kamtoyoyo. Only in the changing room where the players change. So the men are okay because there's a wall. Women, where do you go? So there were such simple things like, it's not even a comfortable place to go. Let's start there before you even get into the quality of the game. And I used to tell them, yes, the quality of the game is not what we see on EPL. I love watching Arsenal. Quality of football in Europe is fantastic. It's on another level. Ours, you can't say the same. But if you really want to one day see us get there, we need to literally kaza and support the game to grow and become that. It's not going to become that overnight. I always say a lot of the best sports people in this country, or you and I, were sitting behind desks. We're not playing sport. Why? Because your parents said, it doesn't pay. Get a real job, you know? So a lot of sports people have left sport to get real jobs. So those who end up playing are almost like, wow, I'm jobless and I'm good. Or I finished high school and I'm good. It's not someone who's playing by design, as in I was trained from when I was the age of 8. They probably ran into the skill at the age of 15 and realized, I'm not bad in high school football. Let me see if I can get into a club and let me grow from there. But we're not developing football by design. We're not investing in the infrastructure. We're not investing in the branding, in the marketing, in the coverage. So there's so many layers. Before I challenge you and tell you, why aren't you going to come to Yoyo? You'll say, I'm not comfortable there. Old Trafford, I'm comfortable. So you see, it's a catch-20. I wouldn't fault anyone who doesn't go because we haven't yet created an environment to invite you there.
I think we have a long way to, so there's that, but then there's also a security issue. I remember
and security was also one of them.
Yeah, I remember going to Kenya versus Nigeria match. And it was such a big deal. So we were a group of us. We had some, you know, some girls were with us. They refused. They said, we can't go. And the reason is they don't feel safe. They didn't feel safe. So we get there. At the gate, you have a ticket. But to get in, there's a stampede. It's just so chaotic. People are stealing from each other. You don't even feel safe parking your car around, you know, around the stadium. It's a lot of those issues. But I remember growing up, so I always wanted to be a goalkeeper. I loved football. I always wanted to be a goalkeeper. So this is primary. So this is primary school.
Okay.
We didn't have kits. So we had a coach, I remember. This was in Dandora, by the way, Dandora. So we had a coach who had really given himself and even spent his money to just equip the team. So he was trying to build up a team. So anybody coming in, stop doing drugs, you just come, let's play football. So I joined and I said, I want to be a goalkeeper. Nilipigwa tu penalty moja. Mpira ikaenda juu. I didn't even have gloves. Mimi nikarukia mpira, kidole sausage. That was it for me. I was like, no, I'm done with football. But I didn't actually get support from people who thought, go to school, get an education, get employment in government. Because back then, ukienda kazi na serikali, you've made it in life. So like you're saying, it's true. No one grows up thinking, I want to be a footballer. No one grows up thinking, I want to be a swimmer or I want to do sports. Because one, it's almost like especially in Kenya.
You look at the people who are doing it and they're struggling.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's that issue.
nowadays it's changed quite a bit because at least we have the Olungas and the Wanyamas, and there are people you can look up to and say, you know what, they've made it, they earn a living, they drive decent cars, they live in good places, but those are so few and far between. But you can, now it's a lot of investment from your parents. Mm-hmm. Like the kid that plays in Arsenal, his dad is a Kajango from Sijuea, you know, but your parents have to make the effort to get you into the best and proper academies. So a bit of people are becoming sports people a bit by design nowadays, but it's such few and far between.
But it's not
the rest are stumbling on the talent. There's a girl who's a really good swimmer, and her mom said, you know what, she's been swimming, and swimming is for very young people. And her mom, I interviewed her on my show, and her mom said, no, right now I need her to focus on her education because we're not seeing where swimming is going to take her.
Yeah.
As swimming for Kenya. She's never going to earn a living, and I can't support her till she's, you know.
Yes. And the thing is, I mean, the support EPL, and this is just football or soccer as an example, because there's love for other sports. But the appetite for EPL and what have you shows that people love the sport. But there's the lack of support that you have pointed out. Let me use it.
You know, if you talk about EPL is, it never was, now it's becoming arguably the best league in the world. Arguably.
In the world.
In the world. But for the last, it was a 30 years of branding and marketing, the EPL. There's so many other leagues over the years that have been better in South America, in Spain, in Italy. The La Liga used to be huge, Bundesliga huge. But England made a decision in 1990 when it went from the old structure of football to what it is today in England. And they said the media is going to get behind it. We're going to brand this. We're going to market the hell out of this. So it got the most money. And that's why now they can attract the best players in the world. But we underestimate the role of the media in building anything. Yeah. Because they made a deliberate effort to positively market this sport. I'll give you an example. When SuperSport was showing the KPL, I used to host a show called Simba Soccer, 2010, I think, for about 4 years with Wakabi and a few other guys. And we used to be told, if something bad happens at the game, don't focus on it. Focus on the positive. And we'd get really upset. We're like, why are we hiding the truth? Why are we doing this? You know. But they said that's what England did to build the EPL. It's not completely covering anything, depending how bad it is, but it's focusing on the good. And there are enough positive stories to tell to fill your 1 hour bulletin if that's what you're aiming for, you know? And we'd be like, no, we want to focus on that's crap, and that's a problem, and that's a problem, and this happened, and that. And they said, no, make it strategic.
Right.
But as well, I want to be an independent journalist, or Dennis Okari will come and do an investigative piece and show that we've not been saying the truth, you know.
I tried it once. That's when I realized.
The time you called me and told me all this about sports, I want to do something. And
I called Carol, by the way, because I was so interested. There's a lot that was going on around sports.
You at KTN then, or?
No, NTV, by the way.
Right.
So I had done a story about this athlete. I'll not mention his name. So his lawyer, he'd done some races, made lots of money, but then because you have these athletes who didn't really go and finish school handling money, they trusted this lawyer. Lawyer alikula pesa zake karibu zote. So the guy had gone from different media houses to get his story aired, and nobody was willing to listen to him. So by the time he's coming to my office, he had already given up. So my friend who brought him says, this guy's really gone through a lot. So I'm telling him, tell me your story. So I'm trying to understand athletics. So it's new to me at the time. I'm trying to understand, okay, so how did this lawyer do this? Okay, so what happened? Where were you running? I didn't know the guy. So the guy wasn't even telling me the story. He was like, yeah, like bullet points. Then I realized the guy is so heartbroken because there's a cartel around sports where any negative sports story will not see the light of day. That's what I discovered. I didn't know. So next day, I told him, I promise you I'm coming to Eldoret tomorrow. I spoke to Emmanuel Juma, my boss then. I told Emmanuel Juma, I think we have a story here. I go to LD. The guy has built a very nice house. His wife is pregnant. The guy has all these trophies and medals on a wall. There's one dedicated wall with all these medals. But the guy has nothing in his bank account. I bought him lunch that day. I actually had to give him my per diem. I'm seeing a broken down, a beat down vehicle. I'm like, So tell me, all these photos, you've been running in all these countries, pesa yote imeenda. I was like, no, justice has to be done. I come back to Nairobi with a story. I start getting phone calls, from politicians from that side. Oh, we hear you are around here. Mbona kuja kusalimia wazee? So people want me to kill the story. So I'm thinking, so how are we going to help the sports industry or our athletes if we keep covering a lot of these things? I decided to do the story.
By the way, by all means, never cover a story that, especially if it is damaging. Never cover
like cover up.
If it is damaging. Huh?
Never cover up.
Never cover up a story. Never cover up a story.
I did a story.
There's a difference between telling all the good stories and covering up a story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't cover up a story. That one even we agreed.
Yes.
We'll never cover up a story if there's a bad sport. And there have been bad stories. There have been issues of alleged molestation of players and things like that, which we've had to cover.
Yeah.
But if you're going to watch a 90-minute game, try and paint a picture that builds the sport rather than focusing on crushing it and crushing it. We tend to, I think as Kenyan journalists, focus a lot on what is negative. A lot. It's like, if it's positive, it's boring or something. I don't know. And yet, sport needs to be sold.
Yeah.
It needs to be sold. But on the flip side, we have, and I have had these conversations with club owners, with federation owners, with politicians, with I think everybody who will listen on what they need to do to give us more positive stories. Because at the end of the day, you can't cover what's not happening.
Yes.
So where are the positive stories to tell? Give us positive. When we're telling people, come and watch a game at Camp Toyoyo. When we had a Jazza study activation there, I had to call Muzindiri to exclusive loose. Give me toilets. Because I have to tell women, come and have somewhere to go.
Yeah.
But if somebody's going to come and write a story and say, we don't go there because there are no toilets, it's a fact. You can't ignore it.
And it's
But what
embarrassing.
can we do then to bridge the gap?
Yeah.
We had to hire bleachers. There's nowhere to sit in Camp Toyoyo. We had to hire bleachers. I called Rabah. I told him, please, give me bleachers. He gave us bleachers for free. So we had to call in all the favors we could to try and give people an experience. But then sustaining that is what is a challenge unless the fans keep coming over and over again.
So, Carol, do you think we need to first fix the infrastructure around our sports first, or what do we need to? What comes first?
There's no one thing, and there's no first thing. It's multi-layered.
Okay.
What I tell people, because security is a huge issue, you know, the people who are saying, hey, my car has been stoned at Nyaya roundabout before, I'll never come there because that's the perception they have. I always tell them there are 18 teams in the Premier League. There are 20 in the second tier. There are women's teams, women's Premier League, women's second division. Don't go for a high pressure game. If it's your first time to go to Nyayo Stadium, go and watch Tusker FC versus Bandari. That's a very good game, by the way, in terms of quality of players, quality of our league. So you don't need to rush into the derby if you're still a bit timid about finding your way around the stadium. I've been stoned before during a derby. I was on the touchline for Supersport. I was stoned because of a referee decision and then blah, 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 whatever, tear gas fired and stones flew. But I will still go back. I will just be careful. I know where to go. I know how to handle myself. So I understand those people who say issues like security, who criticize the stadium, the infrastructure and stuff. It needs to be multi-layered because you can't, somebody once told me, Radul, you're campaigning for 5, or you guys want your 5 state-of-the-art stadiums. Who's going to fill them? The games are empty. Who's going to fill them? They'll become white elephants, you know? So I said, I actually changed from, don't give us 5 state-of-the-art, give us a moderate stadium like Machakos in every county.
Yeah.
So you can do things that are quick, that people will welcome, and that you can sustain. Because that's where we go wrong. It's not sustainable. The government throws something at football, 250 million, at Harambee Stars, and then disappears. How do you sustain that? So you have to get your infrastructure in order. You have to begin investing in academies. Because eventually, when I come to your stadium, I want to watch good quality football. The academies we have right now are me and you hiring a pitch on the weekend, telling parents, give me 5,000 a month and I'll train your kids. And I have no formal training, you know. Maybe I played the game.
Yeah.
Those are the academies we have. That's why you're seeing we have players who reach a certain level but never break into Europe or break into even the Middle East or the Far East. We have 3 or 5 players playing right now in top leagues. No, there are two. If you can call Qatar a top league, I don't know. But Olunga is one of the best we have. He scored a hat-trick in La Liga. Where? So we need the infrastructure. We need proper academies. We have the Kenya Academy of Sports, which I had never heard of. Me, Carol Radull, had never heard of them till they called me to moderate a conference last year in June. And I was like, where have you guys been? I said, oh, we've been around, but the government doesn't give us money. I'm like, I thought you're a government agency. So.
Yeah.
But they should have academies around the country that have a structure, that have a curriculum, so that we can monitor the growth of these players. So as you're beginning to train 8-year-olds in primary school, you're working on the infrastructure. You have campaigns that you told the media, I want your stories. I want you to cover us. I want you to write good stories. I want you to help us build this game. It's in the interest of all if sports works. Then you have a campaign for the fans at the same time, telling those of you who are truly fans, come to the stadium. Do you know when we started our campaign, Kids for Football in 2008, it was me who started. I just went on a Sunday to watch a game, enjoyed it, covered it in my sports news on Monday morning. Mutoko asked me, are you going back next week? I said, yes. She said, can I come? I said, come. In fact, bring Jalango and Larry, and we started calling people and greet from there. Then, years later, when Automax, the Automax, used to be Harambee Stars and AFC Leopards goalkeeper, was asked when he started going back to the stadium, he said, I started going back because Radul and Mutoko told me to go back. I'm like, you played the game. You should be telling us to go back. So there are these ex-footballers who don't even support the game.
Yeah.
There's so many people who you can convince to go and watch a game, and when others see you going and enjoying yourself, they'll also come. There are people, the derby was the other day. I'm sure there are people who are like, I missed. Just seeing all the hype and the fun and how it was, who will go for the next one? So you build from there. So you can't do one before the other. Build infrastructure, get your academy system in order, do a campaign with the media, bring the fans back, then approach the corporates, because the corporates are the ones who will keep this thing sustainable. But the corporates won't come without the fans.
Before Mark jumps in, I watched FIFA Uncovered on Netflix.
Yes.
Watching FIFA Uncovered, Sepp Blatter, and the politics around football, I actually didn't know that thing was that deep.
It's bad.
But where you have infrastructure, you're saying building these academies, these small teams, having all these facilities, the feeling that I got after watching FIFA Uncovered is, oh, okay, so there's money that was actually in millions, that was actually supposed to go to Kenya to do this and this, so where is that money? Again, going back to the whole corruption and the scandals around it.
We haven't even touched on the leadership needs to get its house in order.
So the feeling that I get from athletics to football is these layers and layers that need to be peeled. So you have corruption issues that you have to deal with. You have the politics around management you have to deal with. How choky? Like, sometimes I watch the things you do and I'm like, I'm in support, but I'm thinking, you're just one person really pushing for this. You need a lot of support.
Sometimes I feel like I'm banging my head on a brick wall, but I hope that, I hope we can at least make a difference. I always tell people, ask yourself what I can do for the game. Everybody likes pointing at the federation, at the government, at the club owner. What are you as a football fan doing for the game? Do you know that your voice and your presence at a game makes a difference? Right now, the government can do anything with sport. Why? Who's going to complain? The stadiums are empty. That impunity, they don't care who's running the federation. Who's going to complain? Where are the fans who are going to complain? They're in the club watching Arsenal. They've never ever touched, never ever entered a Kenyan stadium. So who are we answerable as government when we don't do the right thing? Those 5 stadiums we were promised, there should have been a pro from football fans. Where the hell is our infrastructure? Even give us 7 moderate stadiums. You know, they built the one in Meru, which is fantastic. I don't even see it hosting games. It hosts national events.
Yeah.
Then there's Kisumu is under construction now.
Yeah.
Mombasa. Mombasa is like
Kisii.
Our second city,
Kisii.
Kisii have a very, by the way, Kisii have a very good stadium.
Yep.
They've done their stadium really well, which was done by their county government. Big on them. Kakamega, they tried. 3,000 capacity, should be bigger. That's a home of football. Luyaland is the home of football. There, they need the bigger stadium.
And
so we don't complain enough when something is not done for football. We have the sports fund, sports and arts fund. Right now, more of that money goes towards the health ministry. And by all means, health needs money. But the taxes we pay should be going towards health. What did they do before 2019 when the sports fund came into operation? You know, all of a sudden, that's the only money they have for health. Yet they tax us, and now they were going to tax us even more, you know? It's not like the sports have spare money. We need money in sports. We need infrastructure. I talk to these people every week on my show, Radul Live. It's for Kenyan sports people only. Volleyball. The biggest problem with volleyball in this country, everybody's saying Malkia strikers, they are participants in international tournaments because they win maybe one game and never go far. But apart from Nyayo Stadium, Kasarani, all the other stadiums are outdoors. The stadiums around the country are outdoors, the volleyball pitches. They play outdoors, then when they go for international tournaments, they play indoors. So you're training on different infrastructure that you're going to meet when you go for international tournaments. And yet, it's a warehouse with a net. You can't give us good volleyball courts in every county of this country?
I think
it's
I'm so riled up. I feel like I'm starting a protest. Like a boy, like listening to Carol.
The infrastructure is not that expensive,
yeah.
But they're taking our money and taking it elsewhere. Arts. It's like arts and sport is for fun. It's like they're not industries. Yet these are industries that can employ people who can pay taxes.
Right.
I think the
feeling is like we treat sports like PE lessons in Kenya.
Exactly.
Like after mesoma math, science, bio, cheze too. So there's no real deliberate attempt at improving or even investing or even taking time to say, okay, we have this side, like athletics is a really big deal in Kenya. The whole world knows about Kenya because of athletics. We've got
and yet the tracks in LD that they use is privately owned. Those are things that should be available in every county. There should be proper athletic tracks in every county. There should be proper stadiums. There should be proper volleyball courts. You won't even go to hockey and... By the way, I've even learned Kenya has sports like kabaddi and I don't know. We just don't... We don't pay enough attention. Do you know, I was interviewing a year ago. I interviewed the guys who went for amputee football. They go for the World Cup. I don't know if you know this. Wow. We go for amputee, but we even go for kabaddi and those...
World Cup.
What's this other sport? The one with the funny net. It's a Canadian sport. I'll remember it anyway. The amputee footballers went for a World Cup. Now this guy is explaining to me. He was the captain. Went for the World Cup, didn't have kit. And you have to play in uniform. They looked up, they saw some fans had come in the way you come in one uniform as fans to cheer a team. They had to approach those fans and say, can we use your clothes? What? And Kenya played in fan kit so that they would be the same and be allowed to play. Because they came the way you would see a game happening in Kawangware. They just came in there.
Yeah.
And this is amputee football, national team, World Cup. You tell me you can't get kit. Last year we had the esports team that was going to the global games in December. And they told us, when I interviewed them, they told me, oh, we've written to NOC. All we want from them is kit. Because everything is being paid for by the International Esports Federation, but we want them to know we're representing Kenya.
Yep.
So all we want is kit. So I said, who did you write to? Oh, we wrote to who? We've been trying to follow up. I picked up the phone like this. I spoke to one person. I called my friend. Humphrey is my go-to person. I told him, please just talk to your guys and find out what's going on. After a week, the guy calls me, Radul, we've got kit. Why does Radul have to call for a team going out to represent this country just to get kit? And luckily, by then, because the president had whatever on his agenda during Jamhuri Day, It was all about the internet and the youth and all this stuff. And so eventually the esports team, before they left, they met with Ababu. And they were like, Radul, this is the best. Now from NOC, they met with Ababu because they wanted to show that, oh, we're actually doing something with the youth, you know, and it's in esport, which is the future, and it's what the youth are doing. But do you have to call Radul to get kits?
But on that point...
We had bodybuilders, sorry, one more story. We had bodybuilders who went to Romania last year. They won 2 golds, a silver and a bronze. I had to call Madame before the former office. By the way, Babu, I have a lot of faith in Ababu. Don't get me wrong. Ababu, I have a lot of faith in him. The former government, not so much. I had to call them and tell them, do you know we have Kenyans in Romania who have won 2 gold, a silver and a bronze, and nobody knows. So I called one of Ambassador Amina's former PAs, and I told him, arrange for them something. When do they arrive? I said, 4 a.m. tomorrow.
They're representing Kenya.
They're representing Kenya.
They bought their own tickets.
They bought their own tickets. They got clearance from I don't know which, because unfortunately all these sports have 2 federations fighting, 2 federations fighting. Most of our sports have 2 federations fighting. So they managed to get the papers to go. They're representing Kenya. They've won 2 gold, a silver and a bronze, and nobody in the entire Ministry of Sports knew they were even out of the country. And we surprised them at the airport. They got them dancers and tinsel and those things. Do you know those guys, they were calling me. I didn't go because I had a show in the morning. They called me, they were in tears.
Wow.
Radul, we've been met by the ministry. They've given us a van to drop each of us home. We've been recognized by the government. They didn't even want money, they wanted recognition. The guys were in tears. I'm like, why does Radul have to call to say, Kenyans have won gold and silver?
Ebu, let's give her a hand. The team, man, let's give her a hand for what she's doing.
No wonder people want her to be the sports CS. No wonder.
We have a big mouth. I can't work for anyone. I have such a big mouth, I'd be removed.
And let me just read some of the comments as people are following. Navon Ondeng, you say, FC and Gor Mahia can't merchandise. Sell pencil pouches, backpacks, rulers, etc. We're too greedy. Kaiser Chiefs and Orlando Pirates have done it so well and make money off it. Fans buy legit jerseys. That's one of the comments coming in. Don't know if you want to respond to that.
I want to tell a sad Gor Mahia story.
Yes.
I wanted to buy a Gor Mahia jersey. It's about 10, 11 years ago. And I asked, hey, Ogede, where did you get your Gor Mahia jersey? He told me, I will give you the number of somebody who's an official of Gor Mahia. You'll get the right jersey. And I call and I buy 4 jerseys. My dad wanted one, my sister wanted, so I bought 4 jerseys. They were delivered to me there at Lion Place. And then somebody asked me, I was wearing it at one of the games. I was asked, where did you get that? And I said, from so-and-so. They told me, don't buy from that person. I said, why? I think that person has ordered them themselves. This is an official of the club from China. So an official of Gor Mahia, this is like 10, 12 years ago, is selling her own jerseys that have nothing to do with the club. They're doing their own biashara. And because it is an official of the club, you assume this money is going to the players.
Yeah.
No. Someone's running their own biashara. And
so the club colors, the everything.
It was a perfect Gor fan jersey.
But it's their own side hustle.
But it's their own side hustle. Not a single shilling was going to the club. And that's the biggest problem with now the merchandising.
Yeah.
Because somebody somewhere will go and print their own faster than you know.
Yes.
That's why you can't even get advance tickets to a Gor Mahia game. You sell tickets the day before, tomorrow someone has printed and is selling their own tickets.
There's never a dull moment in Kenya.
And speaking of jerseys, something interesting she said off camera that I asked her, why didn't you come in your Arsenal jersey? To which you said,
marketing and branding. I was telling the story of this jersey. I was doing a giveaway on my Radul live show. I was giving kit and balls. And the girl who won, she was playing for this club, Soccer Sisters. It's a girls' team out of Kawangware. So I told her, give me the name of your club owner or your coach, somebody I can talk to and arrange the handover. You know, you're not going to give a player. So she gives me the number. I'm called by the owner or one of the officials, and he tells me, Radul, you're coming to our pitch in Kawangware. we want to surprise you. What is your size? We want to give you an Arsenal jersey. And I said, you run a club. I don't need an Arsenal jersey. I have dozens and dozens of Arsenal jerseys in my closet since 1999, home and away. Use this opportunity to market your club. I said, your club is called Soccer Sisters. I want a Soccer Sisters jersey. So even our club owners don't understand branding and marketing. Why are you giving Radula an Arsenal jersey at a local club? Use it to sell your own jersey. Brand yourself. Right now, there are people who are hearing about Soccer Sisters for the first times in their lives.
Me too. I'm hearing it for the first time.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, I was like, brand and market, because at the end of the day, you're telling me, help us find a sponsor. What do you have to offer the sponsor? Sponsors are not CSR, you're not a CSR project. Sponsors are selling product.
Yeah.
They need to know who are your fans, how many fans do you have, do you keep a database, how well known is your club, are you on social media, what do you post, what's your engagement like? So most of our clubs don't even understand that they should use every opportunity they get to brand themselves and their players and market themselves and their players. And this is not even a problem. That time Soccer Sisters were in Division 1. This is, I think, a year or 2 years ago. I think 2016, 2017, I was called by KPL to accompany the KPL All-Stars to Spain. They were going to Malaga to play against Bundesliga 2. It was an exchange program of sorts. Huh? So I was called by someone at KPL then, and then he tells me, by the way, we have been called by La Liga to ask if we know you. So I'm like, okay, me, I don't know anyone in La Liga. He said, they found you, they Googled sports journalist, Kenya, nini, and your name came up. And that is because of what I was posting on my social media. Yeah. So they said they want me to accompany the team. Then the guy is saying, wow, these people are serious about social media. Ati they asked for, now Ati La Liga asked for the lineup of KPL All-Stars that will be going to Spain. Yeah. They were sent a lineup of players, like 30 or 23 players, I can't remember how many they were. So La Liga started, instead of telling KPL, give me profiles of these players, they Google you. They want to find you on social media and they want to know you through there. They came back, now there's a guy from KPL who's telling me, Ati, wow, we were in trouble. Ati, of the players, the names we sent, about half have accounts. Of those, half update them. Of those, half put good content. Others are putting themselves in smoking shisha in a club. Others are putting themselves with their families. No offense to your family, but if you're going to follow a footballer, you want to know about them. How do they train for a game? What do they eat? What's their regiment like? When they're injured, give updates. You know, tell them about why we would follow you. I'd follow you because you're a journalist, you're investigative. So your content must match why you're on social media. And out of those 23 players, there were like 3 that La Liga actually said, these guys are doing the right thing. Wow. And then the KPL officials themselves are not even on social media.
Niwale was there.
Ati, that's for my youth. I'm like, at that time I would tell, actually, Michael Joseph, those, all these guys, you tell them who's on social media, they're like, oh, you mean it's something for serious people? We're like, that's how you brand and market yourself. The year Cristiano Ronaldo was at one of his years at Juventus, he made more money on social media than he did in his basic salary. Not his endorsements, his basic salary. He made more money on social media because that is where the brands were. It's actually his fan base.
He's actually the most followed on Instagram right now.
He's the most followed in the world, yes. I think he's almost on 500 million, I don't know, last I checked. But our footballers didn't know the value then, and this is like 5-6 years ago, they didn't know the value of being on social media. And nobody in KPL was guiding them because the clubs, somebody needs to guide them. Somebody from the federation, somebody from the KPL. KPL didn't even have a marketing department. They had a marketer on a consulting, but they didn't see the value of having a marketing department. And I'm like, you're looking for sponsors. You're selling a brand. Yeah. There's a time someone from KPL walked into PQ's office and told him, you know, you guys are broadcasting KPL live, aren't 100 million in rights. He was told, get out.
That's Patrick Kwako from Radio
and
Africa.
then he's being told, but you know, football is very valuable. He's like, it's a valuable product in the world. Have you made it that valuable here?
Yeah.
So as much as we go after fans and media and all that, those who own the game also need to do their part to grow the game.
And I'll share my experience of what you're saying about social media and the power of it, not just for the players, and that's a really good challenge. I hope there are people in the sporting world who are following this. But let me read this from Jose M, who says, Radul kept me glued at Radio Kiss every Saturday afternoon. Ask Radul, when will Arsenal qualify to become a football club from being a chama? He's watching
Tongue
from
in
there.
cheek.
So that's Joseph from Meru. And there's someone here watching as well from South Korea and Bahrain, Rail Vivian Kim. We appreciate you tuning in, not just here and even internationally. We appreciate that. Mandonga, mtu wa kazi, huyo mtizedi, the boxer. I saw it. I think it was your page actually. You said it was an exclamation, oh my God, he's here. And it was his video at some kichaka, sijui, cutting some trees, you know, being the hype man that he is. And that night, I don't know if you went to KICC.
I didn't, but
yeah. I missed out, but I was following online.
Yeah.
The hype that was there, it was so highly marketed on social media, and the corporates came in as well. This is a boxer from TZ. And I think even it's Morris from here, Barazalab, who even tweeted and quipped that it's because of this man that his interest in boxing has been, you know, started again. Like he kind of...
He's a character.
Yes. And the power of social media in selling that, and I'm sure you probably saw it because socials.
Strangely, I actually saw it on TikTok. It's a TikTok video that was a forward to my WhatsApp that I saw. Jamaa mejichocha, sweating. I'm like, who's this guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is this even serious? Then I actually, like yourself, I actually followed up to the to the bout at KCC. I'm like, I didn't know anything else apart from watching this guy, and then I tried scrolling to see other videos of the same guy, and it's the same thing.
Because we had it's actually Rachel Okwiri, every time he's boxing he'll update me now that he's a professional boxer. But a lot of what our athletes lack are people to guide them on how to present themselves and how to sell themselves. A lot of our athletes don't know how to sell themselves. Mandonga knows how to sell himself. He knows how to, he has that. You can see he sat and studied Muhammad Amin. You know, Muhammad Ali. Sorry, not Muhammad Amin. Muhammad Ali. And he's realized that
sting like
sport needs a villain in quotes.
And a certain charisma.
A character. They need an Usain Bolt. You know, they need somebody to sell a sport beyond the sport. Because then you get consumers who are not even hardcore sport people watching that sport. And that's what Mandonga has nailed down. There are people who, I just need to go and see this guy live.
Yes.
Even if you don't know anything about boxing, you don't know the
Even
results,
if he loses.
Even if he wins, he loses, the hype gets to you.
Yeah.
And we don't have people who coach our sports people how to brand and sell themselves and how to sell the sport themselves. That chokozaring really works. Right now, there are a few good social media handles. I think it's Kiare, Ushuru, I don't know what happened to their social media handles, but there's Ushuru, there's Police FC, there's AFC Leopards. There are few social media handles that have hired people who know how to chokoza and get people talking about an upcoming game or the results of a game. And the more they do that, you will begin to get people interested in the game. So, but we need people to coach these people, because you can't expect every footballer to be outgoing or every sports person to be outgoing. But you can tell them this is how you can.
Yeah, and I mean, you can, someone like Kipchoge, he's a very, you know, subtle kind of character. But when he speaks, and you can tell there's someone behind his, you know, social media and the strategy to put his brand outside there, there's a way they position him. He's a very
I'm sure they've even
soft-spoken
given him
man.
public speaking
They
training
have.
and all that stuff.
And this is needed for the sports guys to sell themselves. Omanyala, he's there. He can get there. You know, he can sell himself even further because there are people watching. Speaking of people watching, Abu Mohammed, Saudi Arabia, home of Ronaldo, watching. Radul for CS Sports. Just listen to how she articulates issues. That is Atei Joshua. Naona nakubaliana na wewe.
You don't appoint yourself.
No, ni watu wamesema.
Hii mwito inakuja.
Yes.
Itakuja.
The people have spoken. And if as CS of sports, let's say as CS of sports, how would you have handled the situation of betting companies? Because I believe there was a narrative that was wrongly drawn around betting companies. And there was a season there that even the local league was affected because they pulled out. There seemed, or at least what looked like, a government directive to clamp down on what was drawn as a social evil. Inaharibu vijana wetu, inamaliza vijana wetu.
You know, our government just hears, they see your profit margins and they're like, we want a piece of that. Unfortunately. But rightfully so. I mean, if you're making a lot of money, pay some taxes, you know. But we handled it the wrong way because they cracked down to the point where betting companies didn't have as much money as they could have had to directly support sport. So instead of betting companies giving money to leagues, they now give to the sports fund. Then unfortunately it doesn't come back. I feel they should have compelled betting companies, you must be investing in one sport or the other. In terms of betting being a social evil, you can name alcohol, you can name smoking, you can name so many evils, but you just tell these companies, take the steps you need to make sure, one, you're only reaching over 18s, two, there are ways you can tell them to run educational programs. But at the end of the day, do you know that right now, if you look at the English Premier League, I think there are about 16 or 17 teams in the English Premier League right now that have betting partners. That's how big betting is across the world. It's not something you will get rid of, especially in a country where you're not creating jobs. Betting is giving a lot of youth hope. I'll tell you a story. There's a time I used to give predictions on my social media, and I went through a lucky period. Every time you give a prediction, it's neither here nor there. It's a 50-50 chance it'll come true. But over a period of like 4 weeks, my predictions were coming true. And I used to have a column in the Star, and my predictions were coming true. And one day, this guy wrote on my comment section that, Radul, I need to thank you because by following your predictions this month, I have made my rent.
Wow.
I said, what do you mean? He said, I was looking for a job. Then you gave me predictions. I followed your predictions and I've been winning every week to the point where I've stopped looking for a job. I told him, no. Don't give up looking for a job. Look for a job. Betting is not a job, you know?
Yes.
And I know betting companies tell you bet your spare money. I don't know how many Kenyans have spare money, but bet money you can afford to lose, kind of, you know? Because one day it may go horribly wrong, you know?
Right.
So I hate it when I see someone saying, I put my school fees and I lost. So don't let it get to that. Look for the jobs. But where are the jobs? So here you have something selling hope to our youth. If I put 10 bob here, there's a chance I could get 100 bob. On the flip side, I don't even see the possibility of a job in the horizon.
Right.
So here you have somebody selling hope versus you not giving us jobs. Do your job as the government. Instead of saying, shut down these betting companies or trying to cripple them, give these youth jobs. Trust me, if everybody had a job that is paying them decently, they wouldn't even be drawn to spending school fees and rent and stuff on betting.
Right.
So create these jobs. Where are these jobs? Fix the sports industry. There'll be room for so many jobs. I keep telling this story. Sorry, I have many stories.
No.
For someone who
That's
never
why we're here.
wanted to come here and talk. 2010, went to the Bundesliga, and I tell the story all the time. Went to the Bundesliga with Supersport, and they took us to, I remember going for a game at Bremen, at the Weserstadion, which is the home of Werder Bremen. And they took us there in the morning because they were taking us around. We were being hosted by the Bundesliga. So you get there in the morning, the game is like at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And the first thing you see is it's full. The game is not for a couple of hours, it's full. The security has been there, the groundsmen are there, they're watering, the media, the live broadcasts, whatever, setting up. You go upstairs, they have the hospitality suites, you have waiters, you have cooks, you have drivers, and you have people all over. You go to the fan shop, it's a huge fan shop. You have the salespeople, the tellers, the whatever. They have a museum there as well. There are people who've come manning the museum. And I just ask myself, by the time you get to the game, the trucks have come, they're selling hot dogs, they're selling beer, they're selling... Then the players arrive with their masseurs and their doctors and their lawyers and their representatives and their families and the coaches and the whatever. And by the time the game is started, you can count a few thousand people who are working on this game and getting paid from this game.
Yep.
And that is one game out of 10 games in the Bundesliga on any given weekend. Then there's the second tier, and the third tier, and the fourth tier. So this is happening in small hubs across the country every Saturday and every Sunday. A few hundred, a few thousand people employed around a game. Imagine who can be employed in the sport industry. It's not just the athletes. Here you have the athletes and the coaches. You have the accountants. You have all these other level of professionals. Fix the sport industry. Give people jobs. Trust me, you won't be complaining that the youth are doing nothing but betting.
You know, speaking of jobs, and in line with what Carol is saying, just having that imagination, the picture of nimefeel kama niko Bundesliga. Like I can see the picture, you're walking, hot dog, nimeona before ingendani. Somebody actually is saying, somebody here is saying, this is Michael, no, not Michael, I'll get Michael. Nevon or Dennis says, imagine having a small section at Naivas, Carrefour selling Gore or AFC genuine merchandise. Our teams wouldn't be begging government for funds. Instead, KRA will be looking for them to pay tax.
Exactly.
Your merchandise,
yes.
The visibility,
And they
like everywhere you go.
AFC jerseys used to be at Uchumi at Sarid. Then, I don't know.
That thing
And we know what happened.
to Uchumi.
But they have tried it. And is it AFC? It's AFC that opened a fan shop about 2 years ago, and it lasted for about 6 months. By the time I wanted a jersey, I saw, that shut down. I'm like, okay, there was big hullabaloo when they opened a fan shop.
Yeah, yeah. So, I don't know if you read it that way, because, and again, I have to go back to that narrative, because yes, there was hue and cry. 1 or 2 stories that we come to a newsroom where Made is complaining, oh, my son, I used the school fees and used my money. There was a fight here, a scuffle there. But then the crackdown and the videos that we'd see coming into the newsroom from correspondents of those machines, those small machines that Vijanas play in corners in different parts of the county for some type of gambling, they call it. And, you know, the minister then in charge of Interior took it upon himself to really go hard on this. And I'm like, really, is this a genuine fight against gambling? Or is there another story not being told that is happening in boardrooms and someone is not getting a cut from what they expect? You have investigative eyes. I don't know what you saw. I'm not telling you to tell anyone anything.
No, this is what I will tell you. So, disclaimer. So I was part of a team this is back at Nation, that was actually working on a story. This was touching SportPesa and this whole thing and other betting companies and what the former Interior CS Matiang'i, I mean, the statements he was making. This whole debate actually went up to Parliament, you remember. And it was a whole campaign that other, government agencies also roped in. And it was this thing in Haribu Vijana. We are having a whole mess in major villages, towns, and whatnot. There were different faces to this whole story, but the politics around it, what I actually saw, I never ended up doing that story because of interests. So there were so many interests. And now the issue was, you want to do this story and tell the real story, but then you have commercial interests. So if we do this, what happens to these guys? See, they will pull all their ads, they will pull all their commercials. So what do we do?
From the stations.
From the station. So at the end of the day, there are all these conflicts of interest that are around this whole subject. And the politics behind, because there is no way, and through my experience and having done a lot of these stories, there is no single day a cabinet minister just wakes up and makes a directive that is so impactful like that one without the involvement of some top leaders. There is always a target, there are always interests, and you look at all industries where you'll find these guys are making money. Gava will always be interested in there. I mean, right now, we speak of, you know, KRA. KRA's interest in going online to pursue guys who are doing businesses online because they realize, there are some guys here who are doing podcasts who are making some money online. Amen. You get?
Amen. Amen.
So there's a political angle to that story. I don't want to get into the details of it, but there was politics around it. In as much as there was also this whole idea of, you know, we have our own culture, we have our own virtues, we have all this, and this thing is spoiling the kids, like what Carol was saying. There was also an angle to a lot of young people, again, were not either going to school. You know, I had a close friend. Amesota ataniambia Deno, nimekwama mahali town, nimeibiwa sijui nini nitumie hata ansa hiyo amenipigia na simu ya mtu. It's not a number I have. Nitumie tu 500. So I'm like, 500. Okay, are you safe? Okay, sawa. Nitumie kwa namba gani? Tuma kwa hii namba. Why? Kumbe lengine amefuliza. So I sent 500. Only a close friend of his ananiambia, you know, Deno ile pesa unatumanga. And it's always on a Friday. So it didn't hit me. Later, I'm like, why is this thing happening on a Friday? So the guy borrows money from different people. Over the weekend, hiyo ndio kazi anafanya. Just watching EPL, betting. And sometimes he will make money to feed his family. Sometimes he will lose the money. So again, there was that addiction to gambling. But
give these guys jobs.
Yep.
Like what Carol is saying, create jobs.
Right.
Or compel the betting companies to sponsor different sporting initiatives, so that you're also creating jobs. Do you know when that year when SportPesa went down, there were title sponsors of the Premier League, there were Gor Mahia sponsors, there were AFC Leopards sponsors. They just signed a deal with rugby for almost $1 billion over 5 years. They were boxing sponsors, Kenya Boxing. Is it professional? One of the boxing associations. So the number of sports people, think of all of rugby, KPL, clubs, boxing, instantly, your source of livelihood gone. Sports people went from getting an income, you know, nobody thinks about that last man. That player whose salary used to come from there. What do you think that player is going to do? He's going to go over the weekend and he's going to bet and he's going to make money somewhere else, you know? So you're not really helping things when you just crack down without a plan. The way you said it, it seemed like somebody just woke up one day and decided. What's your plan for people who are living off? And that I'm not even talking about the employees of the company itself, you know? So you're creating so many people on the streets without a plan.
Exactly. And Amunga Isaac, and we're not paid to do this, but Carol is worth her salt in regards to sports growth, reach, promotion in Kenya. It is time to give people who have tried and tested these dockets. Carol for CS Sports, huge vote of confidence. At least sukubali tu ito, inakuja kwako. It's coming your way. You will look back on this day when there's someone going through vetting or listing, and they will be watching this episode and say,
I have a lot of faith in Ababu.
Yes.
He's only been there a couple of months. I've known him for a very, very long time. We've had good conversations about sport, not just in the last 6 months, but from years and years ago. So I think we should be very patient with Ababu.
Okay.
He hasn't yet had time to... At least he got us unbanned.
Yes, one of the first things. Yes.
As he enjoyed himself in Qatar, I paid Bana to go to Qatar. But at least we've seen a few things that are happening. He needs to begin to think about other sports as well. I know football is the loudest sport. But we have so many sports in this country where things are not going well. He needs to step in. Swimming is a good example. We have so many, badminton. Do you know we had been banned from badminton? Nobody even squeaked about it. We were banned because we went for a tournament in Uganda and had more officials than players. The officials ran to stay in the bubble hotel, and the players were out of the bubble, which was during COVID. So they were not allowed to even play. So we got banned. That's another story. But you didn't even hear a squeak. We have so many sports in this country that nobody pays attention to. Imagine how many people could be employed by this sports industry of ours.
But Carol, the role of media, because your passion and being a journalist and having covered sports, what I've observed in the newsrooms is, so in a typical bulletin, like saizi ni saa moja, saizi it's 7:12, saizi bado tuko maybe masiasa, commercial breaks. So you've got a bulletin divided into like 3 or 4 sections. So you've got the main part, which is the heavy bulletins, you know,
where you're going with this.
I mean politics. Then you have somewhere business quizzed, given like 4 minutes. Sports in the Congo, come on, show.
1 minute.
Maybe past 10, yeah. And then tunasema ni nuts.
Yes, nuts ups.
Nuts ups.
Yes.
Go pictures.
Yeah.
No sound, nothing.
Underlay ups, and then it's probably even EPL game ya jana.
Maybe Arsenal ilifungwa bao 3, we only get to see 1 goal. So we don't see the other 2 goals. So
broadcasters shouldn't even be showing yesterday's EPL games. We saw them. We saw the highlights.
So what do you think from a media standpoint?
Yeah.
Because you've addressed the fans. There's a fan issue. There's the whole management issue around sports. But the media is like what you've described in other countries. The main driver in terms of visibility for all this. Like the stories, some of the stories you actually talk about, Miss Jaya Taskia. What's the issue with the media? How can media come in to then help?
Media, let me just say it outright, has failed sports. And I'm not talking about sports journalists per se, because, as you say, they prepare the stories and they're given 1 minute. In fact, there's a sports journalist we hired once at, I think, Bamba Sport, and he said, finally a place I can give a whole story. He said, by the time, and you guys can attest to this, you have your 1 hour bulletin. On paper, I think sports has like 7 minutes. But if Kina Masai have gone over that 7 minutes, by the time it comes to sports, it's 3 minutes.
True.
So you squeeze through the sport and it's finished.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not necessarily the sports journalists, it's the editors or whoever decides what goes out who are failing sport. But even the sports journalists, let's also not be so lazy in how we cover our sports. It's not just football, rugby, and athletics. There's so many sports in this country. Lacrosse, that's the one I was trying to remember. Do you know we've gone for the Lacrosse World Cup? We were there in August with a men's team. 2 years ago, we were there with a women's team. People don't even know we have lacrosse in this country. There's a huge program at Lakisama. By the way, if you're looking for a story, go to Lakisama. They have a huge project there.
What is lacrosse? I have to be honest. This one I don't know.
Yeah, you're Googling.
I want to go. Mark, are you Googling? What's up?
Softball, hockey, all these sports need more space. I try to cover as much as I can on my social media page. I even started, my Radul live page is 100% Kenyan. I do not even do, maybe I'll do AFCON, but I'll never get out of Africa. Go to my Radul live page, 100% Kenyan.
Yeah.
We do every single sport. We cover every single sport, and I do it on my main page as well.
Lacrosse is a game played by 2 teams in which players each use a long stick with a net at the end to catch, carry, and throw a small ball. Thank you.
Just Google lacrosse.
Thank you.
And we've been to the World Cup.
Yes, I didn't know that. Thanks to Carol.
But
there's so many sports in this country. So I wish, and I'm sure I'm giving a Babu time to find out which other sports there are, aside from rugby, football, and athletics.
Right.
And tennis. By the way, tennis has the best run federation in this country. It's not a surprise at the level of success we're seeing in tennis. And it's not even just Angela Okutoi. We were in Rwanda the other day, came back with so many medals. Tennis Federation doing a fantastic job. Archery, did you know that our women won silver at Africa Championships in November in archery? And I interviewed one of the girls the other day. Really nice Muslim girl, head cover and everything. Lethal.
Wow.
We won silver at the Africa Championships. We have so many sports in this country and they all need attention.
You know, the amazing thing, the irony of what you bring up is actually the sports segment would arguably be one of the highest, revenue earners within a bulletin. It actually has most of the sponsored segments. Just before it starts, maybe in between, a squeeze back here and there, and then at the very end. And that's why they have to run the sports segment, even if it's just one underlay. you know, and even cut short. I know my former colleague, Yoshua Makori, he would go mad. Sometimes he's taken off air as he's continuing because we don't have time. But they had to run to make good for the sponsor and say, we run the bumper or whatever it is. The irony is it's actually bringing more money than
So it's
the
the
other
editors
part.
and the media owners
Yeah.
who should put their foot down and say, why can't you have 30 minutes of news and 30 minutes of sports? It has its own audience.
Yeah.
Give it the seriousness it deserves. Maybe the government won't be so impugn in how they manage sport because
There's focus.
people are paying. There's focus on sport.
Right.
Daily Lens says, look at Sky Sports, who deal with pure sports
Oh, yeah.
content.
Oh, yeah.
Kenyan media is dead since they have failed to evolve. Another one says, sports news in Kenya usually past 10. That's why I stopped watching local TV stations.
But then you can't wait. Then it will clash with the Champions League game.
Somebody, Rasm Janja says, we actually need a sports channel, period.
Yes. And we have some through like what
Well,
you can
we
tell
tried
people.
it at Bamba Sport. Unfortunately, sports rights is damn expensive. And even people there wanted to watch EPL on a free-to-air channel,
Right.
which can't happen because the rights is just ridiculous. And unless somebody's going to underwrite that cost, or you're going to charge people for TV, which they won't want, it's going to be really tricky. So
So what went wrong with that? First, I want you to tell us as lessons, because you say like Jazza Study initiative and campaign will come back, but also something like Bamba Sports. Like, why didn't it kick off? There is a mass follow. There is an audience. for sports.
because we should have, and it's not me, I'm talking on behalf of the company, should have tried to popularize, because at the time we were showing NSL Live, the National Super League, second tier league. We should have had a parallel program popularizing the sport, not forcing Kenyans to watch second tier football that they are not familiar with.
Yes.
By the way, our local football is very popular. If you go to NSL, if you go to the community clubs, they're well watched on the ground. But trying to tell a national audience to watch Bondo United play is a tall order. So you have to popularize the league to a place where you and I feel, I have to watch this.
Yeah.
Why do people pay DSTV so much money for premium? Because you're going to get the content you desire, because that has already been popularized for you.
Right.
So here we are broadcasting leagues live that people are not yet, they won't make appointment viewing to watch an NSL game. Then you want to sell that to a sponsor to underwrite your costs, because we're paying rights, paying rights to the federation. So you need to have that cost underwritten by a corporate. But the corporate is like, who's watching?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, who's watching? So you're just spending. And live TV is not cheap. Broadcasts, live broadcasts of games is not cheap.
Yeah.
So you need to have a corporate who underwrites it. But the corporates will only come eyeballs. They need eyeballs.
Jazza Study.
Jazza Study was taking off, then COVID happened. We finally got a partner in Betika. They said, we'll ride with you. And COVID happened. And then the government took another 2 years, despite letting people in bars and churches, to allow people back in stadiums. So by the time they did, the corporates had moved on.
No, but there's potential there, because I see what you do on the socials. And then this Saturday, I don't know where you were hiding. You said you'd be somewhere. I came. I watched the game alone with some...
Mark, you have my phone
with
number.
Swahili guy. Tukawatch tu, sijui ni Mswahili ama nani.
We're watching
Tukawatch.
football somewhere, and it was hot, so we went indoors. This guy comes, sits outside, and then says, Kina Radul are not here, and he leaves.
I
And
left.
we're like 2 meters away inside. Like, he can't call me.
But that is an initiative right there. Even as I was driving to meet her on Saturday, I was wondering, do these clubs, these entertainment sports realize how much commercial power the games give them? Because that's appointment viewing. Some people come because of the hype. Like, leo kuna Man U na Arsenali, leo kuna hii na hii. They don't probably love the game, but they know it'll be packed because there'll be hype around it. So that's the same concept even for Jazza Study. And I hope you bring it back.
It's the same concept for Kenyan football, but you need to popularize it first.
Yeah.
People need to make stars of their players. You see the way you're talking about that Tanzanian boxer.
Mandonga.
Aero, that one.
Yeah.
If every club had a superstar for you that would attract you to go and watch. You see, we don't make our sports people superstars. We, the media, should make them superstars.
Yes.
It should reach a point where Angela Okutoi, there was a tournament they had in October, November. We hosted a tournament in Karen. It was a regional, it was an international tournament. We had tennis players from all over the world. But Kenyans won't even go and watch our Angela Okutoi. Yet she's won Wimbledon. If she goes to play in London, trust me, she'll pack like this. As we just hear, Angela, okay, she's playing. I'll get the results on Radul's page. But we don't take the initiative to go and watch her.
Yes.
I remember, I think it was Anyang Nyong'o who said one day, he said, shame on us. Catherine Dereba, when in her days, can walk in the streets of Nairobi and not get recognized. She cannot walk in the streets of New York. She is called Catherine the Great. So we also have an attitude problem. We don't see our stars as stars. And on their side, they don't make themselves appealing.
Yes.
Like Rayton Okwiri, if he walked in here, would you know it's Rayton Okwiri? Yet he's a better boxer than Mandongo.
Allah.
But one has a mouth, one has sold himself.
He's fighting with his mouth.
But we have a bad attitude as Kenyans as well. We don't appreciate our own. It's only recently we started appreciating our musicians. 20 years ago, we're like, that's a Kenyan I'd rather listen to. Now we're like, hey, Nigerians overtaking us, South Africans overtaking us.
Right.
Let's give ourselves a little bit of attention.
Somebody here says, Radul, you need a sports consultancy firm that gives our athletes good brand equity or even country. Rwanda, Arsenal. Now, South Africa's Tottenham. Sports can create lots of opportunities for Kenyans.
They should look for that guy who said, what did he say?
Yes, he wasn't.
Whatever, Kondele.
Yeah,
visit Kondele.
Visit Kondele, not
visit
Rwanda.
Rwanda. Visit Kondele. But I have to look for that guy.
Yeah.
It's good marketing.
It is.
It's good marketing.
And people here agree with you. We need, someone say we need a Kenyan Peter Drury to bring football commentary and other sports commentary to a certain level. Our celebrities should also help in hyping our games.
I wouldn't criticize our commentators too much.
Yeah.
Really good commentators in this country, especially in Kiswahili and other local languages.
I mean, there's Bernard, one of the greats, who speaks, I don't know how many languages. Is it even French?
Like 6-7 languages.
Yeah, really one of the great people that we see. And there's one who is your former.
There was a second part to that comment.
Sorry.
Which I wanted to...
our celebrities, yes, our celebrities should also help in hyping our games. They have a role to play in terms of sports.
Do you know that is how Tanzania built their football? With their celebrities, with their diamonds and all these big artists. That's how they built their football, because they're fanatics. Like Diamond is a football fanatic. Most of their celebrities are football fanatics. So every time there's a game, the clubs have associated themselves with different musicians, and the musicians would help fill their stadiums. You go to Tanzania now, their stadiums are full, especially when there are derbies, Yanga Simba, full. Not like our Nyayo was 35% full.
It's very
for the
true.
Derby.
And I remember,
it's a full completely.
And the gentleman
so
for
true.
Nihujuma is also someone that I remember from Tanzania. And actually, I thought it was someone from here initially. There was someone who wrote in, he's a former producer. So many comments. Yes, Brian Richu says, Shik's Carol's favorite Supersport producer sends her regards.
Hi, Shiko. Brilliant sports producer.
Yeah, and that's something that she can, as we wrap it up, to last leg up. There are many frustrated sports journalists in our newsrooms. This I know because I've worked with several. But there's an example you have, and you can use this opportunity to speak about the platforms where you address issues, sports, on a weekly, on a daily.
When I'm in the mood.
When you're in the mood. But at least in a week you have that conversation.
My show is on Saturdays at noon on the Radul Live, but that's usually more profiling and getting understanding what the athletes' their challenges are.
But you understand the frustrations in the newsroom for sports journalists, and there are people who are really passionate. I know James Wakabi and others. What could you tell them in terms of how they can tell their stories even outside of contemporary?
Our journalists don't take advantage of the social media space at all, our sports journalists. Now there are a few like Eric Njiru who are beginning to realize that, oops, actually, not only do I not have a boss over here, I can say what I really want to say. No one will stifle me and say we have commercial interests. They haven't taken the time to build their own. Social media is media. It's your own audience, you know. So I'm fortunate in that I built mine. I understood a long time ago and started to build, especially my Facebook, my Twitter, Instagram, not so much. Facebook, because it's a very good platform for bantering for football. But then you also get to say what you want to say. The story they didn't run it yourself. There's YouTube. There's so many platforms you can take advantage of nowadays that if your boss is not running it for you, run it on your own platform. Yeah. Run your own content. Get the story out there. I mean, Eric, to mention Eric Njiru, he himself got Ozil jerseys in Kenya, you know, got Ozil to take notice that there are fans in Kenya. So that's the power of what you can create by yourself without waiting for your boss who's going to give you 1 minute. Yep. And then it's also a revenue earner. You know, I tell people I had a very good problem in the last quarter of last year called too many clients. That's the best problem. I was running around like a headless chicken. All these clients wanting World Cup material and reels and content and bantering and whatever. So use it as well as a source of income. Doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Kapesa hapa na pale. Yeah.
You know, listening to all this conversation as we wind up, like Mark, what you've just said, I just keep wondering, when did this passion for sports start with you? Because you've done business, you've worked in so many media organizations, but this sports is like a calling for you. Like, where did this start?
I can't pin it. I know as a child, my dad used to watch Liverpool. I won't say he was a Liverpool fan because may his soul rest in peace. He became an Arsenal fan, maybe because of me. But I do remember a lot of Liverpool when I was growing up, and those were Liverpool's successful years. I've always watched sports. I was swimming and badminton were my sports, by the way, in high school. I'd go until nationals in both swimming and badminton. Football, I'm terrible at football, by the way. Hockey, I got an injury like yours, and I threw my stick, never to be picked again. But when I was just an Arsenal supporter, and I would make a lot of noise on the radio. And one day, Radio Africa were looking for someone to host the show, the Kiss show on Saturday afternoon, and I was like, okay, let me sit there and be Maina's sidekick, you know? So I'd sit there and be Maina's sidekick and make a lot of noise. And all we used to cover was English Premier League. As in, we would break the show between May and August because there was nothing to watch. Yeah. So one day I asked myself, Kwani, there's no football in Kenya? I used to remember the days my uncle was the Secretary General of Gor Mahia, I think in the 80s. So I'm like, I remember Kenya has football, but why don't we talk about Kenyan football? And I took myself out to look for a football game, to look for Kenyan football. And I remember calling my friends I used to watch football with in the bar, and they told me what you were telling me earlier, because I was looking for someone to go to Nyayo Stadium with, and they're like, are you sure the security is okay? Are you sure there's somewhere to sit? Are you sure? They asked those questions, and I was like, well, let's go and find out, you know. Since no one else is watching, let's just go and find out. And I managed to find a friend of mine who was an official at Co-Stars at the time. And I went for the game, and then you quickly realize this is not what I watch on TV. I think I watched Tusker Sony. And I'm like, this is not what you watch on TV. The quality is different. The players are living here looking dejected. They're walking to catch a matatu. You know, at that time you're talking about a player being bought for 20 million pounds. You want £1 million. You can't even say it in shillings. It's mind-boggling, you know. So I'm like, that's not what's happening here. So something tugged at my heart that what's the difference between their football and our football? What's the difference between their footballers and our footballers? And why can't our footballers be like that? So I began to pay attention, and that's when I got Caroline involved, and Larry and Jalango, and everybody started getting involved in what can we do to make our football like that football. Then you start asking, where's the gap? Then you go for rugby, it's the same story. You go for a hockey game, same story. Why is it that we are such sports fans in high school, but when it comes in high school, we used to fight to be on the cheering squad so that we can travel and steam, ahoy, you know. And here suddenly, you finish school, you're working, and you don't really care that Kenya sport is nowhere. So as any human being, the minute you're vested, I'm sure after today's conversation, you're going to pay more attention. You're going to pay more attention. When there's a game, you're going to take yourselves to the game because of what you heard today. So I began to realize that there are things not being done, and I was in a position to do something about it. And then you start talking to these players. You can't hear the story of a Kenyan footballer and not feel you want to do something about it. My phone rings off the hook. Radul, I've been locked out of my house. I got a call yesterday. I've been locked out of my house. Can you loan me money?
And this is a football player?
It's a football player. I get from football coaches in the Premier League telling me, this has happened, help me out. Because there's no money. Their salaries are delayed. There's no why. Anyone who hears this, and it's through no fault of their own, they're doing their job. They are waking up. They are training. They're going for the games. They're even getting results. Then why aren't they being rewarded? If you work hard as a journalist, you deserve to be rewarded. Why aren't they being rewarded? Everybody loves football. It's the most popular game in the world. Billions of people watch the World Cup. Yet in Kenya...
Radul, how do you debrief? I mean, like it looks like you are carrying so much, and someone here is even saying,
I'm upset.
Manze Carol to the world.
By the way, I'm upset. I'm upset.
Yes.
You better just wrap this show because now I'm upset. Let's have a beer on the weekend. I'll tell you the rest of the story.
And someone here says, Dennis Baraza, you say, I know it needs an hour, but please for a minute, discuss Harambee Stars. What do we need to compete internationally? Really quick.
We need to get our academies in order. That's simple.
Oh, is that
If you want to, I know there's a plan to go to, is it 2030 World Cup?
Yeah.
That is Ababu's goal. And I won't say it's impossible. The last World Cup, we should have qualified. The games were doable, you know. But until we intentionally groom the talent we have, and there's talent everywhere. We need to stop thinking there's only talent in Nairobi, Mombasa, and Kakamega.
Yeah.
Go to Northeastern, go to Eastern, go Nyeri. Nyeri have these two teams called Marafiki and Rware FC. When they play a derby, they're thinking Division 1 or something. It's packed, and the talent is ridiculous. So we need to widen our talent search, but we need to consciously begin to groom a generation of footballers.
Right.
Because then we intentionally can say Vision 2030, knowing that go back 10 years, the players you should be grooming today, there should be a 10-year plan because they're 8 years old. They should go to the World Cup when they're between 18 and 25, say, with a few senior players with experience. But it needs to be intentional.
Right.
Let's stop running into people who are good at high school, become MVP in high school games, and suddenly this is your best player in the country. We need to intentionally develop players. If your child is talented, intentionally.
Yeah.
And the government needs to put a curriculum, rein in on these academies, make sure they're structured, they're not just ex-players who are coaching on the weekend, you know.
Yeah.
So that we actually intentionally groom well-skilled players who you know will go and play in Europe. Not might, know will go and play in Europe.
Right. I have to read this real quick. I don't know if that's the same one. Elias Makori. Great vibe right there, and we know him. He leads a sports team at Nation Media Group. And he agrees, sports journalism has some panel beating to be done. Equally, our sports personalities need serious media training to market themselves and their sports more. Do you train them? Because they would, I'm sure they'll watch.
I've met with players, I've met with clubs, I've met with different officials, even parents telling them how to train their own. Corey's done a good job, but his focus has always been athletics, and he's actually done his job in athletics.
Right.
The football journalists, rugby journalists also need to step up and do our job, but he's absolutely right.
I think I'll just wrap it up with this comment from Clint Muga because it paints a very clear picture and sort of summarizes everything we've been talking about. He says, we need to move sports from the social pillar to the economic pillar. We should prioritize this and also embark on building standard sports facilities across the 47 counties. The type of surfaces our players are training, playing, competing on up to 99% are in a sorry state, and this affects the development. You can attest this to the quality of players we have in our two top-tier leagues for both men and women. You could even see some players struggle with ball control, body position. We have a huge talent pool, but needs to be nurtured in a conducive environment, have good qualified coaches. We need to have good training, playing surfaces that will really raise the game, attractive and entertaining football that will attract more fans, and the guys with the money, sponsors, partners, stakeholders will all want to be part of it. Then don't allow the local leaders to build political rally venues in the stadiums. I think it's just summarized.
I should have come in an hour ago and said that and walked out. He must be an editor. He must be an editor.
He's really, really
He
good.
summarized
He
what I've been trying to, what I've said the entire hour. Last Saturday I was at NCC grounds in Ngong Road there next to the Met Department. There was a Division 1 team playing, Coast Starlets versus Kibera Soccer, women's teams. And Kibera Soccer is top of the league, Coast Starlets are like 5th or something. That playing surface.
Wow.
Do you know, a girl falls and I'm like,
Yeah. Oh no.
and you just see blood. And they get up and they continue playing. And I'm like, this can't be okay. This can't be okay.
Yeah.
And that's a Division 1 women's, but we don't even touch women's football. We can't. That's another show.
I think there will be a part 2 of this.
Yes, amesema. That's another show. So let's just call this halftime. We'll resume this. Carol, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence.
I've talked too much.
No.
We didn't even touch about now you as Carol Radull. Who is Carol
Me, I'm
Radull?
boring.
No. You've got this interesting story. Growing up, I saw, was it in Botswana?
Yes.
Botswana, coming to Kenya, because there's somebody MSM, yo kizungu ya Carol Radull.
But in Botswana, I grew up with the white South Africans. I used to
South
talk like this when you came back to
South
Kenya.
Africa.
I had a complete South African accent. And it's not even the black South African accent, it's a white South African accent. I got rid of it. Private school. It's time to go home.
Why not wrap it up with that hearty laughter, and we just appreciate you. TNT ati anasema ndio kuingia we, anaingia kama chelewa bwana.
Atapata recording.
Atapata recording. It's
Atapata
true.
recording.
But let me wrap it up. My name is Mark Masai. I've been learning. Lacrosse.
Clint Muga actually is actually written another post. Thanks, Deno, for reading my post. Ni Coach Mariga from Vipower Ladies. Hapo 2 NCC grounds.
Yeah. He knows the pitch.
So he knows.
Hey, he knows the pitch.
Sour
There's
Clint.
the whole valley in the middle.
Wow. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, mwah, mwah. And next time we're not going to the bar. Next time we're going to Nyayo.
Why are you telling people?
Please
we're
tag
going
me
to-
along.
Okay.
Me, I want to go to watch this local game.
All right.
Tukiona Carol tapigwa. Mind is safety.
Hey guys.
Those are my people.
Yes,
Those are
what do
my
I
people.
care? Hey, let's wrap it up here. Thank you so much. I'm Mark Masai. Good night.
Dennis Okari, good night.
Carol Radull, good night.